Beginner mirrorless cameras are now better than ever. You finally have cameras with the high-end specs while being smaller and easier to use. But the key to getting the right camera for you is to find one for your specific shooting style. Otherwise, you might get a camera you don't really like. So let's break down the best beginner mirrorless cameras based on the best value and for different shooting styles. Also, I'll leave links down below with the best pricing on all the cameras we talk about. Now, the first camera on this list was made specifically for people picking up their first real camera. And that is the Canon R50, which just had a huge price drop to $699 new or $500 used. It's a very small and travel-friendly camera. The grip is a bit small, but it still feels really solid in the hands. The button layout is super simple and easy to use, so even if you're new to cameras, it's a real easy camera to just pick up and get great results with. And it also has intelligent auto mode where you tell the camera how much brightness, contrast, background blur you want, and the camera does all the technical stuff for you. And it also has a side articulating screen for self-recording, but the screen is also 100% touch sensitive that lets you control everything including autofocus. And if you're coming from a smartphone, you'll feel right at home. It's a really seamless interface. And you can also connect this camera wirelessly to your smartphone to not only transfer your photos or videos, but you can also do a live view where you see everything your camera sees on your phone and also control the camera through your phone. Plus, you also get a built-in flash and a viewfinder, which is really rare for a beginner camera at this price level. The battery life is pretty decent. You should get all-day battery for casual shooting, but if you're a power user, you definitely want to grab a spare. On the bright side though, you can charge the battery via the USB-C. But let's not forget about image quality. The Canon R50 has a 24 megapixel APS-C size sensor, which gives you a very solid amount of resolution and detail. But what sets the Canon sensor apart are the warm, natural colors that make almost everything look good. And this is something that Canon cameras are actually known for. So if you're really particular about your colors, the Canon R50 might be exactly what you're looking for. When it comes to photos, it shoots 12 frames per second in first curtain electronic shutter, but you can also shoot even faster at 15 frames per second in a fully electronic shutter. And this is incredibly fast, especially for a beginner camera, and you can easily capture any kind of sports or action with this camera. But one thing to note, when you're shooting JPEG or HEIF, which is the typical format you want to shoot casual everyday lifestyle photos in, you get about 28 photos in a row, which is plenty for social media and everyday use. But if you're someone that wants to do some serious editing and you want to shoot raw photos, this camera only shoots 7 raw photos in a row before it needs a break. So it's not the best camera if you want to do a lot of fast shooting and you also want to shoot raw. If you want to shoot raw, this is really a more slow and deliberate camera. But if you need more speed, I have 2 cameras for you later in this list. Now, one thing I love about the Canon R50 is how fast and reliable the autofocus is, and it more than keeps up in any kind of shooting scenario. Plus, it also has AI-based subject detection for people, animals, and vehicles, so you're never going to miss your shot. Plus, it also has touch autofocus for quick controls. Now, video is where the R50 really shines. You get 4K at 24 and 30 frames per second, but it's also downsampled from 6K. So your 4K footage actually has the quality and detail of 6K without giving you bigger files. So effectively, you get a 6K camera at a beginner price point. And the R50 also shoots Full HD at 60 and 120 frames per second for buttery smooth slow motion. And the best part about video on the Canon R50 is the HDR PQ mode in 10-bit color. This gives you more flexibility than standard video with more dynamic range and an easier time when it comes to adjusting your colors when you're color grading. And using HDR PQ mode is actually a lot easier for color grading than a log profile, which is ultra flat and you need to do a whole bunch of extra steps. So if you're a beginner, this is probably an easier starting point than log footage in more expensive cameras. Overall, you get all the modern and beginner-friendly features in the Canon R50, making it a very easy camera to simply pick up and get great results with. And it also comes at a really good price. But if I know the YouTube comments, and I definitely know the YouTube comments, someone's gonna say this camera is way too expensive for a beginner. And maybe you're right depending on where you live. So I also want to give you guys a budget option, and that is the Canon M50. It's actually the older version of the Canon R50. It has basically the same frame rates when it comes to photos, and it actually shoots more raw photos in a row, so effectively, it's kind of a better photo camera. However, in video, it's not that great, and I wouldn't really bother getting it if video is something you're serious about. It does have slightly slower autofocus, but for most beginners, you probably won't even notice. So if you want all of the photo benefits of the Canon R50, But for an even cheaper body, for about $300, you should definitely check out the Canon M50. Now, if you want a beginner camera with more horsepower because you're creating something a little bit more artistic and a little bit more serious, there's actually not one, but two cameras you should look at, and that is the Sony ZV-E10 and the Sony a6400. They share the exact same internal specs, but the design of the ZV-E10 is made more for video, vloggers, and content creators, while the a6400 is more of a traditional photo camera. And you can find both of these cameras for about $799 new or $500 to $550 used. They both have the exact same 24 megapixel sensor, which gives you an excellent amount of resolution, but what really stands out about this sensor and Sony cameras in general is the amazing low light performance. While taking photos, you can shoot as high as 10,000 ISO or 3200 for video, making it so you can pretty much shoot in any kind of environment, and if you're shooting something a little bit more cinematic, you don't have to get the biggest, most expensive lights, and you can actually get away with smaller and cheaper lights. Now, in terms of color science, I think the Canon R50 does have warmer, more pleasant colors, but see for yourself. Do you notice a difference between the two cameras, and does it make a difference for you? Let me know down below. But when it comes to photo performance, the Sony cameras absolutely demolished the Canon R50. You get 11 frames per second in full mechanical shutter, matching even the newest Sony models. Plus, you can also shoot up to 100 JPEGs or 46 RAW photos in a row, which is a lot more than the Canon R50's 7 RAW photos in a row. And this is a huge advantage for someone that's mainly into shooting action and sports, and the autofocus is also extremely fast and accurate with eye and face detect that works extremely well for both photos and video. And both the ZV-E10 and a6400 are just as impressive in video mode. They shoot 4K at 24 and 30 frames per second, but the 4K once again is downsampled from 6K, giving you a sharper and more detailed image that's way better than regular 4K. And you also get full HD at 60 and 120 frames per second for smooth slow motion. However, the place where the Sony cameras really come out ahead is the inclusion of S-Log and cinema profiles for better dynamic range and more color flexibility. And if you're someone that's really serious about creating stunning video edits, you definitely want to go with a log profile over the HDRP-Q mode. But one thing you should know is that the ZV-E10 and the a6400 only have 8-bit color, whereas the Canon R50 has 10-bit color, so you have to be a little bit more gentle with your footage. However, you can still create amazing results, and there's tons of examples online. However, if you absolutely must have a log profile and 10-bit color, I have a camera for you later in this list. Now, if you like the specs of the ZV-E10 and the a6400, but you're wondering about design, let's figure that out. Now, when it comes to design, the ZV-E10 is clearly for video, content creators, and vloggers. It has one button to switch between photo, video, and slow motion, and dual capture buttons for both photo and video. Plus, it also has a side flip-out screen with touch autofocus, but it's not a fully enabled touchscreen, so you don't get touch controls over your menus and other settings. But one cool feature is that the ZV-E10 also has a built-in 3-capsule microphone for very good in-camera audio, but if you're serious, you definitely want to get an external mic. The Sony a6400, however, leans more into photography. You get a viewfinder, a built-in flash, and a tilt screen, which most photographers prefer, but it does flip up if you want to see yourself. And the battery life in the ZV-E10 and the a6400 should last you all day for casual shooting, but it's not the largest battery, just like the R50, and if you're a power user, you should definitely pick up a spare, but you can charge your battery via USB-C on the ZV-E10. Bottom line, if you prefer video, get the ZV-E10. If you prefer photography, get the a6400. But both cameras are absolutely fantastic starter cameras if you're serious about photo and video, and you want as much power as possible without breaking the bank. Now, before we get into the last camera on this list, chances are some of you guys are going to be mad that I did not include your favorite camera. Two cameras I would have liked to include on this list is the Canon R8, but that's a $1,500 camera, or the Lumix S9, which is a $1,700 camera. Phenomenal cameras that you should check out, but I think they're a little bit more expensive. So the last camera on this list is what I think is the absolute best bang for your buck camera that has all the specs and features a beginner could possibly need without wrecking your bank account, and that is the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II. And it's only about $200 to $300 more than the original ZV-E10, but with the Mark II, you're getting some serious upgrades. Starting with the 26 megapixel APS-C size sensor, which is the same sensor from the Sony FX30, which is a full-blown cinema camera. So the image quality from this camera is absolutely stunning. And it also performs extremely well in low light because it actually has a dual native ISO of 800 and 2500, and you can get very clean results in video at nighttime up to 6400 ISO which is double what the ZV-E10 Mark I can do. And the ZV-E10 Mark II is absolutely incredible when it comes to video. It can shoot 4K at 24, 30, all the way up to 60 frames per second. That is also downsampled from 6K, giving you all of the benefits of 6K, but in a smaller 4K file. And being able to shoot 4K up to 60 frames per second without any sort of crop or compromise is truly unheard of, especially for a beginner camera like this. And if you're a cinematic filmmaker that wants a cheap cinema camera without wrecking your bank account, this is probably your best option. And the autofocus in the ZV-E10 Mark II is faster and more reliable than the original and still features face and eye detect, but it now also has subject detect mode for people, animals, and cars, and this autofocus is more than enough for most beginners and even some serious video shooters. And the ZV-E10 Mark II can also shoot 4K up to 120 frames per second for ultra smooth slow motion, but it does come with a pretty heavy 1.6 times crop, so keep that in mind. But you do get full HD without a crop at 60 and 120 frames per second, so if you're into slow motion, that might be the way to go. But the real standout features when it comes to video are two things. One, it has cinematic vlog mode where you can instantly set up a custom movie look right in camera with just a few taps on the screen, and it even has black bars at the top and bottom for that ultra cinematic look. But you can only use this mode at a maximum of 4K at 24 frames per second. But if you want to get really serious with your color grading, you also have S-Log 3 and S-Cinetone in 10-bit color, giving you the maximum amount of dynamic range and flexibility when it comes to color grading. So if you're someone that's really serious about your cinematic edits and you want to make more than just casual vlogs or little films, you want to create something actually artistic, this is going to give you everything you could possibly need in your camera in terms of raw horsepower. I messed that up, but now you're probably wondering about photo performance. Well, this is where things get a little bit dicey. It shoots 11 frames per second with a very large frame buffer, and it's just as good as the ZV-E10 Mark I or the A6400. However, this camera does not have a mechanical shutter, and it's electronic shutter only. So if you're someone that wants to do a lot of photos with fast-moving action, you're actually better off with the cheaper ZV-E10 Mark I. Now, when it comes to design, the ZV-E10 Mark II might look like the Mark I, but it actually has some pretty big upgrades. It has the same clean layout with the one button to switch between photo, video, and slow motion, dual capture buttons, and a 3-capsule microphone for better audio right out of the box. However, there's two major upgrades. One, the screen on the back is now 100% touch enabled for accessing menus, major settings, and of course touch autofocus. But on top of that, you also now have a significantly larger battery than the Mark I, which is actually going to give you about triple the runtime of the original. So if you're a beginner who wants a video-friendly camera with all the bells and whistles you could possibly want to make your life as easy as possible when you're shooting, and you also want cinema-level quality from your beginner camera, the ZV-E10 Mark II, this is the best bang for your buck, and genuinely you could not do better for this price. So if you want to check out the ZV-E10 Mark II or any of the other cameras we talked about in this video, make sure to check out the links in the description down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.